Hello everyone, welcome back to another video here. So today I'm finally going to be talking about Edge of Fate, all that shenanigans. In the background gameplay you're going to be seeing just a campaign mission, and at the end of the video you'll be seeing, me having taken on the final boss. Just a couple of things to note. I do apologize if footage lags at some points. Seems like my GPU can't really handle recording at full, what my monitor is, so next time don't worry, I took it back down a little bit to try to ease some of that up. Now, a couple things I want to mention here. As I will be talking about all aspects of Edge of Fate. I'll be talking about the campaign, story, and actually playing through the missions. Don't expect me to really go in depth in this video like super hardcore in depth. I'm not taking lore pages, shenanigans into account. I'm not only going to be talking about that, but I will also be discussing the changes that came with the expansion. Um, Now that being said, you might be asking yourself, well, Hot Sauce Man, what are you comparing this to? I am Edge of Fate's scope is kind of complicated. Edge of Fate's scope is kind of complicated. So I'm going to be, I'm more so going to be comparing this to pretty much all expansions. However, I'm not necessarily taking into consideration the fuck tons of activities that I'm not considering like the seasons that came with it. So, for example, for Beyond Light, I'm not considering Season of the Hunt. For Witch Queen, I'm not considering whatever the fuck the season's name was called that came with that. Same with Final Shape. Um, I am considering when we get to raids and stuff. I'm going to consider Destiny 2's Crota's End, Evolve the Glass, that sort of thing. However, as far as raid in relation to the expansion, I am not counting D1 Vogue, D1 Crota's End, or D1 Wrath of the Machine. So when I get to those comparisons, Rise of Iron, Dark Below, and Base Destiny 2 I'm not going to really make a consideration for. The same goes for all expansions that, like, as far as Curse of Osiris, Warmind, I'm not considering any of those either. Despite me having played all of those campaigns, because I was around a little bit before the giant content vault happened, despite those, I didn't do the raids for those expansions. However, I am going to consider Kingsfall due to the fact that Kingsfall, that raid, is semi-equivalent to its D1 counterpart. Crota's End is just so drastically harder and not that stupidly easy, not really like solvable. Like, it's such a different climate. Even the way you run that raid is very different. And Vault of Glass, I don't have any sort of comparison between the two. So, bada bing, bada boom. So, on that note, though, let's get started. Keep in mind, as far as spoilers goes, there's going to be spoilers in this video. There is. Sorry, but there is. There is. Now, as far as story goes, the story of Edge of Fate, before I get into too harder details, the story was pretty good. In my opinion, the story for this is, in my personal opinion, probably the best. The way it was handled, in my opinion, was way better than Forsaken. Keep in mind, Forsaken story, in my, like, if you're a Destiny 1 or early Destiny 2 vet, Forsaken's going to mean something different to you. However, to the average player that hopped on towards the end or has hopped on any time after Red War campaign got removed, or even if you just strictly play Destiny 2, Cayde is going to mean absolutely nothing for you. I'm sorry. Cayde's death was about the same as ripping a piece of paper. I didn't give a fuck. I didn't give a flying fuck. Sure, I guess it was supposed to be a little sad, but I have no emotional connection to the character when you kill off a character that early in the campaign. Yes, it does set a tone. However, your sacrifice is setting that tone early for letting a player that has no experience with Cayde to build up on. So I consider Forsaken to be among the worst above Shadowkeep. Shadowkeep is the absolute worst. Shadowkeep is the absolute worst. By the way, I'm going to omit Red War, Curse of Osiris, and Warmind from any sort of comparisons due to the fact that those are no longer in the game. As far as Forsaken's goes, the reason why I'm considering the Forsaken campaign is due to the fact the campaign, like Tangled Shore and everything, lasted longer than the content vault, than the DCV. It lasted a little bit longer. It didn't get removed until, I believe, sometime in Witch Queen's year. So that's why I'm considering Forsaken as well, and also how hyped Forsaken is. Now, however, you might be asking yourself, well, why is this better than Witch Queen or Final Shape or any of that stuff? Um, the reason why I like this one so much, I'm not saying those ones are bad. Just giving some general thoughts. I don't think Beyond Light's story is that great either. I think Beyond Light is pretty carried by the activities outside the campaign, the like at least a decent chunk of the exotics, and the raid, absolutely. Um, but I'm more so equating this to Final Shape and Witch Queen. Final Shape and Witch Queen have really strong stories. However, Final Shape was you never saw the boss. You never saw the witness directly. In the Final Shape campaign, you never saw him directly. All you saw was a little bit of a shimmer. It was never in the actual campaign, if that makes sense. You fought subjugators, and I think you fight a tormentor, but you don't fight the witness directly in the campaign itself. I'm not counting the Excision activity or any of that shenanigans. I'm getting to that. I'm counting in this Excision as an extra activity. But for Edge of Fate, I love the little reveal about Ikor and everything. Lodi is the best new character that they have introduced since Mithrax and Keitel. I still like Mithrax and Keitel a little bit more, but Lodi by far is the best character since them. Loved Lodi in this. Absolutely fantastic. I will say Maya Sundaresh having to do with things. It makes sense, sure, but the gap between episode echoes and this expansion shouldn't have been as long. Because it was kind of tough to remember what the fuck even happened in episode echoes. In my opinion, if I were to restructure echoes, if I were to restructure the episodes, I would have put the Fallen stuff first. I would have moved Heresy to the middle, because that's also where you had a giant dead time. And then I would have put Episode Echoes towards the end to lead us, because Maya Sundaresh would have led into this expansion. But because there's pretty much a year. It's been pretty much a year since we last heard Maya Sundaresh, so that was a little bit. I still don't like Maya Sundaresh as a villain. I kind of hope we kill her off soon because I don't really like Maya Sundaresh as a villain. There's something lacking there. The Witness I did enjoy as a villain. Callus, in my personal opinion, is still the best Destiny 2 villain. Not Destiny 1 villain, because that belongs to orcs. But as far as Destiny 2 villains go, Callus was my favorite. But Maya Sundaresh just doesn't have anything to her, if it feels like, as far as like a villain goes. To be fair, she's not quote-unquote a villain, but she is. She's supposed to be one of those sort of empathetic villains, which I've never been a huge fan of that archetype. Sometimes it works, most of the time it doesn't. Look at Cough Cough Dragon Ball, Cough Cough Jiren. Yeah. Okay. But outside of that, I love the reveal of 3 being dead. That was really, really good, in my opinion. I do love the design of 3's body. I wish we would have I don't know, it feels like 3's death was a little bit lacking. I don't know, I felt like there could have done a little bit more with that. Could have been done a little bit more with that. Now, as far as the campaign, actually playing through it, it is the worst campaign to play through by a long shot. This is outside of side quests. Outside of side quests and the side bullshit, which I'll get there. The Edge of Fate campaign was one of the worst campaigns that I have ever played. Not just in Destiny 2, but I would argue in gaming. And yes, I'm including Lords of the Fallen in that, and Mortal Kombat 1. Both the games I really didn't like, especially Lords of the Fallen. Well, Lords of the Fallen when released. I will say, at least as Destiny 2 is concerned, this is the worst expansion. It is Matterspark. However, I don't think it would have been that bad if for 2 reasons. One, there are 14 fucking campaign missions, and they are kind of campaign length. There's 14 of them, which is almost double of the next highest. I think the Final Shape had like 8 or 9. Like, holy shit, 14 is way too much. Also, you retread the same exact area in multiple campaign missions. Most of the times, I believe it's twice, but I think a couple of them you visit 3 fucking times. That is ridiculous. That is something that I can't say about any other Destiny 2 expansion. Ever. Period. Either the areas are short and the campaign was short, but also Kevlar is fucking huge. And kind of looks samey. Some of the areas look decently samey. To be fair, we are coming from from Final Shape, and Final Shape was great. So was Witch Queen. I love the Witch Queen area. I'll say even beyond Light, there's some variety. That being said, you had Dynamic Weather, which never got brought back. But I was like, okay, this is kind of neat. Kevlar visually just kind of alright. I wish they would have incorporated more of, because the train little cutscene and transition between areas or whatever as you run through them, I thought that was sick. I wish they would have had more like stuff from Destiny's past brought in. I wish they would have really fed into that a little bit more. But yeah, that's beside the point. I do find it an interesting choice that enemies are so close to the hub world as well. That was a little bit of a interesting choice. I guess if I had to give the campaign, just strictly the campaign, I'm not talking about side quests yet. I really think it's a 5 out of 10. It's super mid. Super mid. Story was the only reason I beat the campaign. The story was so good that I managed to get through the slog of the campaign. Maybe it's better with multiple people. I went through the entire campaign with Khepri's Horn and Gjallarhorn. At some point swapped to Sleeper. And soloed it on Legendary difficulty. So, maybe that's just me, but let me know what y'all thought of the campaign in the comments below. Now, speaking of side quests, this is the biggest reason why I think the campaign is a fucking failure. I think I'm far enough to the video where I can start swearing. I hope so. But my problem is most of these campaign missions could have been dedicated to side quests. Dedicated to side quests. I think they missed the entire point of having a side quest in games. Why the fuck did they not look at, oh, I don't know, Skyrim? Oh, I don't know, Witcher 3? Or, well, I don't know, even like Souls games have like different like character quests or whatever, and some have optional bosses or whatever. I don't really want to count Souls games in this necessarily due to side quests. Like, they're not necessarily side quests per se, depending on how you look at things. But also, they don't have like a step-by-step process. So I'm mostly considering Witcher 3, Skyrim. I'm not really going to consider, oh, you know, other games. I was going to say Diablo, but that's a little bit of a different situation entirely. But, you know, like, a bunch of these games, you know, they have side quests or whatever. The thing is, the main campaign has to be shorter than all of the side quests, and they're not. The side quests are really, really short. And, well, the problem is that they're really, really short. The problem is they don't really do much to enhance the story in really any way, shape, or form. I don't see a purpose in completing them, except unless you're a completionist. Also, they say you can do these quests whenever you want. That's not true. I will say some of them unlock at really weird points. Like when Lodi is revealed to be connected to the Nine, some side quests still pretend like he's not. So it's definitely intentional that you're supposed to do these side quests in stages when you unlock them. But even then, some of the unlocked ones pretend like the events that led to unlocking those quests didn't happen. They didn't happen. And that has me confused. That had me confused a little bit when I was playing through the campaign. Side quests, I feel like all of them should have just get removed. Honestly, the campaign is so obscenely long that I'm like, oh my goodness. Like Witcher 3, for instance, you can blast through the campaign. You can just blast through Witcher 3 if you want to. However, the side quest is where the meat and potatoes are. That's where the real stuff is at. That's where the real stuff is at. Now, that being said, side quests will impact your ending in Witcher 3. But I'm not saying Destiny 2 necessarily has to do that here. I feel like that would be a little bit too confusing. So there's that. Also, transitioning here to the actual destination itself. The destination, I'm going to give a score later after I explain myself. But the destination as a whole, it's fucking massive. It's way too big. I think for an expansion on what they like tried to set us up for, it should have been smaller. I'm gonna be real. I feel like it's unnecessarily large. Um, as far as the okay, well, I think we'll transition this way. The activity of Kepler is the Sieve. It is active for 30 minutes once every 2 hours. This thing should be active all the time. I don't see a reason why it should be staged like this. Considering that it is the only activity on Kepler. Why fucking time gate it? Why? It's not like Vex Incursion Zone, which I think could have done with a little bit of, it could have had a little bit of, stage shenanigans or whatever. But it's just the Sieve is also not a particularly great activity either. It's a little bit confusing, especially if you have three people that don't know what the fuck they're doing. I'm assuming including yourself. If you have two other people that don't know what they're doing, it's not super easy to figure out that you have to Matter Spark in order to even start the to really even do anything with the activity. Um, the emote thing is fine. The activity as a whole is alright. It's decently rewarding. My big issue with it is in relation to the exotic Graviton Spike. One of the most boring, actually no, it is the most boring exotic quest in existence. It is the most boring exotic quest in existence. It doesn't result in a mission. You really don't even have to do combat for it either. Outside like one step, you just have to kill a few Vex and that's it. And then you do the Sieve. That's it. Also, I believe the Sieve is the only way to get the newer exotic. As far as new exotics go, pretty mid. That being said, we haven't had a stupidly strong exotic armor piece on release in a very, very long time. I think a lot of people underestimate when was the last time we had a stupidly broken exotic. In my opinion, that was Witch Queen. I would say probably actually for Titans it was Pyrogales. For Titans it was Pyrogales, which came out the same year as was it a Lightfall? Was it Lightfall? Was it Lightfall? Was it Lightfall? Maybe. No, or was it the year of Witch Queen? No, I don't fucking remember. Pyrogales was the last time. Every single exotic that they've released with the expansion since has been super strong. Even like Wishful Ignorance wasn't best in slot necessarily, despite being it's a pretty good exotic. Same with Hazardous Propulsion. Pretty good exotic for what it is, but rockets weren't meta when it released, and still aren't necessarily meta due to how bosses are working currently. Because of Thunderlord for the most part. But as a whole, Kepler as a destination is really disappointing. Considering, yes, Witch Queen, Beyond Life, Final Shape, whatever. I'm not expecting the in-depth nature, but I think the big reason why Kepler feels so bare bones is that it's a completely solo destination. I would say, I think I would say since Witch Queen. I think Witch Queen was the last time it felt like the community was playing a game, if that makes sense. Because right now, it really feels like, also, by the way, in the background, you're going to start seeing the raid, so, final boss raid, so. Just warning y'all at but I think Witch Queen was really the last time it felt like we were all playing a cohesive story. Like, it's obvious that us as individuals are the main character, but I felt like we were playing it with other people. Destiny 2, really, Edge of Fate really pushed that Destiny 2 is a solo game. Like, it's just a solo game and there is some activities you can do with other people. There really isn't a good comparison I can draw. There's not a really good comparison I can draw. Because there's not really a situation where we've went from essentially a team game to a solo game. It's usually like if, something happens, usually a solo game that expands to a team game. For example, Elden Ring, all the seamless co-op shenanigans, Swords of the Fallen, it added co-op. First Berserker Kazan has summons or whatever, right? Those are turning solo to duo or trio or to team play. That's what I'm talking about there. But with Destiny 2, it's turning from team game to solo game. Which I guess is a reflection of the community, but Bungie really hasn't done anything to bring a ton of people into the game. Now, as far as the dead, before I move on towards portal to portal shenanigans, now closing up Destination as a Kepler as a destination with the activities, exotic associated with it, the whole package of a destination, I'd probably give it a 3 out of 10. Just what the fuck are you doing, Bungie? Oh, also, there's no vendor. You just talk to a terminal. That's it. There's no like destination vendor like Finch was for Witch Queen, the Ghost was for Final Shape, or Varix for Beyond Light. So I'm just gonna mention that. So yeah, 3 out of 10. Now, as far as the Portal stuff, don't worry, we will cycle back to Edge of Fate specifically, but Portal came out with Edge of Fate. So I'm gonna talk about Portal and stuff. Portal the solo Fire Team and Pinnacle should have gotten put in under the Vanguard thing in the Destinations tab, and Crucible Ops could have put in Crucible. Everything would have been fucking fine. Just put them in those slots. Because currently the destination area, it feels so soulless. Bungie did confirm that they desaturated it to actively make it less appealing. So they're bringing back the saturation, which is nice. Bungie, like this, it is the soul of the game. It is the soul of the game. I did talk about it a little bit in my Desert Perpetual video, so I'm not going to go too hard on it here. But I think the actual activities in them are pretty good. You can launch Strike solo and everything. But the thing is, Bungie is a communication game. It is like team, community, communication, all that sort of thing. It is a team game. However, Bungie seems to be pushing it towards solo. You are on your own. You can do strikes now. You can do exotic. Well, you've always been able to do that exotic mission solo, but it was kind of nice playing with blueberries. I don't know if I'm wrong, but I miss blueberries. Also, there are changes to all raids, all dungeons to force you under power. All this sort of thing is making this game super non-new player friendly, even worse than what it was before. In my opinion, if you've been on the fence about getting Destiny 2, don't buy Destiny 2. Don't get Destiny 2. Don't get Destiny 2. I'm telling you right now, you as an individual, you're not going to have fun playing Destiny 2. You are not. Unless you have friends that already play it, that are active in the game, all that stuff, you are not going to have a fun time. You aren't. I'm not going to do a new player guide for this game. I just think the game is so awful for newer players that I don't think it's worth it to even get the game. I don't think it's worth it. The tier stuff, and I think the armor system is fine. The tier 1, tier 2, tier 3, tier 4, tier 5 system. It's too difficult to get up to tier 5 though. And the fact that we'd have to grind so hard every single expansion that happens every 6 months is kind of ridiculous. I preferred the way it worked before, where you only really moved up 10 light level. I like the activities. I like that you can kind of infinitely grind or whatever, but the grind is too extensive. I don't think Bungie realizes that their player base has other stuff to do. We can't sit there and grind all fucking day just to do a day one. We have jobs. Some have kids and shit, Like, there's a life beyond gaming. And now you do have other games that I think that are live service that are doing better things than what Destiny 2 is doing. Look, I'm looking at First Descendant. The loot drops feel great and everything. You don't have to worry about fucking power levels and light levels. Your gear is what determines, well, your modules, your weapon upgrades, that sort of thing. That determines your strength or whatever. And level is technically a thing, man. You do have to reset your level a bunch for certain characters. But once you get that character up, it becomes easier to do the other stuff. It becomes easier. Your gear and everything is what, for the most part, is what determines the character's strength, rather than having to artificially level up your power level when all that's gonna fucking happen is you're put under anyways. The only thing that's gonna happen is you're going to get put under anyways. So what's the point of grinding up to, let's say, 200 when you're just going to be put down to 180 anyways? What's the point? And I'm not really a huge fan of, I'm not really going to go out and Sherpa anymore. Because raids and dungeons are that much more difficult. So why the fuck would I bother teaching it when I can't really be given... Because, like, Vault of Glass, Deep Stone Crit, Grasp of Avarice, those raids, you know, they're teachable, right? They're good starting raids. Decent loot, whole nine yards. However, by upping the difficulty so massively, too, you're immediately cutting off any sort of opportunities to really teach. And I'm going to cycle this back to Desert Perpetual. Desert Perpetual is an awful raid. It is an awful raid. I'm just going to say this right now in relation to Edge of Fate. It is awful. The loot is pretty decent. However, with a solid team, with your average, quote-unquote, good fire team, I'm not talking about the upper or whatever. You know what I'm talking about when I say your average good fire team will likely be able to defeat Hobgoblin and Wyvern. Probably not the Hydra because the mechanics are fucking stupid. But it will take those bosses 3 phases. Now, the final boss is a little bit finicky. As you'll see, damage is kind of really strange with the final boss. There's something going on with bolt charges. I'm not sure if bolt charging are stacking when they are not supposed to, or what's going on with the final boss, but there seems to be some weird shit going on with the final boss. I also see no point in doing any of the other activities, any of the other bosses in the first place, but I can't even imagine how players that are not good, raiders that are not good, don't have a decent chunk of experience. I don't see how they're going to even come close to being Desert Perpetual. They're going to be gone contest mode infinitely. In my opinion, the perfect raid difficulty is a good team should be able to do it in two phases. 2 phases of damage. I think your best team should be able to 1 phase. When I'm meaning best, I mean like those that run master raids regularly have every single raid title. That sort of deal. I think they should be able to 1 phase these bosses. I think your average good raid team, your average good raid team should be able to 2 phase each boss. This is just too fucking much. As far as Desert Perpetual goes, I have beaten all the bosses except for the Hydra, including the final boss. By the way, I've beaten the final boss, obviously. My problem, I personally, I don't feel like running Hydra and the Hobgoblin again. I don't want to. I'm perfectly content with just doing the final boss. Doing the final boss again and again and again. To be fair, at least I want to run the final boss, which is something that I can't say about Salvation's Edge, where I just don't want to run that raid at all. I have encountered this feeling with the raid before. That was with King's Fall, but that was because 1, it was taking so long for me to get Touch of Malice, but 2, King's Fall is kind of long. King's Fall is a little bit on the longer side, but still, I still like to run the raid every once in a while. I still do want to have an urge to run Crota's End. I'm not gonna have this with Perpetual Desert. I'm not going for the title. Defeat system, a little too complicated. I prefer just having the encounter challenges, having the master challenges. I believe the title also requires flawless. And until, because I can personally survive, but I can't rely on 5 other people to not die, having to do 3 phases of damage to every single boss, except for the final, which usually takes 2. Anyways, though, yeah, Edge of Fate as a whole is an extreme mixed bag. As far as what I was talking about mentioning in the beginning of the video, raid in relation to expansion, it's the worst. It is the worst. King's Fall to Taken King, phenomenal. Phenomenal. Deepstone Crypt to Beyond Light was absolutely great. Witch Queen of Our Disciple, a little bit shaky in my opinion, but still shook out. Salvation's Edge to Final Shape. I personally hate the raid, but I get it. I get it. And with this one, I don't. I'll say I do like the Hydra boss a little bit more than I thought I would. I do like the Hydra boss, well, not Hydra, the Harpy boss a little bit more. But I am just sick of seeing Harpies as bosses. I am really sick of seeing Hydras as bosses. Not super sick of seeing Hobgoblins as bosses yet, but I'm going to get there. It's tiring seeing the same thing over and over and over again. Alright? So yeah, all in all, Edge of Fate it's good and bad. There's not much in here that's super mid, but as a whole, Edge of Fate with everything packaged into it. I don't think it's as bad as Shadowkeep, for instance, because, you know, that's how much I hate Shadowkeep, is I don't really talk about it. However, I don't think it's really as good as Witch Queen, Rise of Iron, because Rise of Iron had, like, the Siva shit was cool as fuck, despite it being short. It had Age of Triumph, made old raid armor look fucking sick. Like Rise of Iron, goated. And are we really gonna sit here and say that Desert Perpetual is a better raid than Wrath of the Machine? Come on. Rise of Iron was better. We can admit it. As on that note, though, thanks for tuning in. Those are just my general thoughts on the Edge of Fate expansion. I have made a decision on will I be playing Destiny 2 past Edge of Fate. This is going to be my last year playing Destiny 2, most likely. I am finally going to quit Destiny 2, unless they revert the rate changes, unless, as far as like dropping you in power, unless they do something, because I'm going to be honest, all of us experienced people should have been put automatically at tier fucking 4. Because grinding for tier 1 and 2 is just like seeing fucking blue gear. It's the same thing. I'm sick of having to grind this hard. For loot that I'm probably not even gonna fucking use. I'm just using the armor from the raid for fashion, for the most part, because you have to do feats and shit for tier 4 and 5. I'm not that fucking desperate for tier 4 and 5 armor that I'm gonna run the raid on feats when the bosses are so fucking tanky. Oh yeah, also, something I forgot to mention, cheaters. Are you surprised? Are y'all surprised? I'm not. Y'all had a boss rush, essentially. Of course there's gonna be cheaters. The more difficult you make an activity, like, there's kind of a line. There's kind of like a line in it. There's kind of a line in the sand. You know, where you get difficult. Like Crota's End was just below that line. Salvation's Edge was above that line, but because it was so mechanic heavy, players like could not necessarily cheat their way through it. Desert Perpetual has such tanky health pools that, yeah, there's gonna be cheaters. Oh yeah, there's gonna be cheaters. If the bosses wouldn't have been as tanky, I don't think as many players would have cheated, if I'd be perfectly honest, or, you know, remove one of the bosses and just make it an ad clear encounter. Like, come on, or like more of a mechanic based thing. I personally, if it was me, I would change the Hobgoblin to the actual detain. You have to detain all players, and the actual reflection does a third of the boss's health. And yeah, that's how you do damage. I think I would have preferred that over, you know, whatever the fuck. Because I don't think the Wyvern nor the Hydra could really be converted into more of an ad clear encounter type deal. So I think the Hobgoblin is probably the only one you could do that with. But of course you don't have that stopgap to prevent cheaters from beating the raid. But Yeah, obviously, with the raid being so difficult that's breaking through the line, you're going to have a fuck ton of cheaters. This will happen again. This will happen again when the next raid launches. It's going to happen again. Because Bungie's not going to learn their lesson. They're going to make the bosses tanky as fuck, having every single one being a DPS check, and not a ton of players are going to be able to deal, are not really going to want to deal with it. So I'm gonna give y'all some my predictions. Come back to this video in like in like a couple months, like 1 or 2 months before Rise of Iron, before the new Age of Iron expansion launches, or sometime after this. You know, sometime after this. Player numbers are gonna drop to new record lows on Steam. It's gonna drop to new record lows on Steam. Rating as a whole is going to start dying. Rating as a whole is going to be dead. Outside of people that are dedicated to doing it, I think the raid scene is going to be dead. The dungeon scene is going to be dead. If Bungie doesn't revert a lot of the stuff that they did. I think player numbers are going to start dropping drastically. I think the new expansion is going to release to record lows as well. I'll be honest, unlike previous years, I've been able to see a light at the end. Currently, I generally don't see any way Bungie can recover anymore. I don't see a way Bungie can recover from this. Because Beyond Light, despite the sunsetting shit, Season of the Chosen, Season of the Splicer were absolutely fantastic. And Season of the Witch was pretty solid, but yeah, the 30th anniversary shit was great. Year of the Witch Queen, I was there at the lows of the Season of the Plunder. But you know what? At the light at the end of the tunnel was King's Fall, and then obviously you had the hope that either Crota's or Wrath of the Machine was gonna come back, and then you had Lightfall to look forward to, and during the dark times that was Lightfall. Guess what you had to look forward to? Crota's End at some point. And then obviously we got really good dungeons and whatever, right? And then, you know, we got Final Shape. Final Shape was the thing to look forward to. The Final Shape happened. Episode Echoes was not good. The Fallen one, Revenant, was mid. Then we had Heresy. Heresy was great. You know, Heresy was great in my opinion. And then Ride of the Nine. Then Edge of Fate. And currently, like, I've always had something to look forward to. I don't anymore. I don't look forward to the Star Wars, despite me being a huge Star Wars fan. Because I know how this raid was, and how this campaign was, I have no hope that the next expansion is going to be a good campaign gameplay-wise. It's going to be 14 or 15 fucking quests, and I'm not looking forward to that. 14 or 15 missions that are bloated as fuck. And the dungeon, I'm anticipating a unnecessarily difficult dungeon experience. That's what I'm expecting. Unnecessary difficulty. So I'm gonna predict this game's gonna really start to die off here. At least the end game stuff is. I don't know about everything else. However, though, on that note, though, let me know what y'all think in the comments below. Let me know what you think in the comments below, and I will catch y'all on the flip side.